Wallace even opened up about that in an interview, saying there's no jealousy. You know those races that honest where feeling halfway through when is it going to be our turn? Like the tension is differently because it's the energy shifts. It's not frustration that something huge is about to break through. And then suddenly, that's why a wreck like this stings even more. Seconds. Just when things start clicking, something like this pulls you right back. Moments like these are why fans are so deeply connected and look at the bigger picture, but also why it can feel so unforgiving. Everyone had the same question. Was this the biggest wreck Talladega isn't just about one headline? There are three major storylines coming out of this race, with each one carries its own weight. It's easily one of the largest
one could have serious
NASCAR Cup Series history at Talladega Superspeedway.
Another shows the raw emotional reality drivers deal with the record-setting
28 and the third crash from the
puts everything into a bigger
perspective that might genuinely surprise you.
Before that, the 2003
Aaron's 500 held the benchmark with 27 cars.
If you're someone who genuinely enjoys
so
real
while this one
NASCAR
doesn't top
this
list,
go ahead
and hit like and subscribe in that conversation. This channel is just getting started.
Pure
aiming for that
chaos.
first 100 subscribers.
Lap 116,
by fans who actually
push
live
goes
and breathe
wrong,
the sport. Bubba Wallace gets turned.
Now let's get
suddenly
into it.
The track disappears.
Everything
starts with Bubba Wallace.
Drivers behind have zero visibility,
not in the way he would
have
nearly
wanted.
200 miles per hour.
During the race at Talladega
Superspeedway, we got one of those instantly recognizable moments every fan knows. And that pretty much sums it up. And this wasn't just any wreck.
This is exactly why
Talladega has
the
26-car pileup that completely reshaped the race and almost no margin
Wallace
for error.
was running near the front when
one
things
small
suddenly
misjudgment,
went wrong.
A bad push,
There was contact
during
during
a push, and half the
something
field
that's
is gone
pretty
in
common at
seconds.
superspeedways.
That's superspeedway racing.
But this time it escalated
When you put everything
fast.
together,
His
the
car
scale
got
of the
turned,
wreck
slammed into
NASCAR's
the outside
ongoing
wall, and
review,
from that point,
the
it was
emotional
pure
hit for
chaos.
Wallace and the historical
Cars
angle.
crashing into
This
each other.
wasn't just drivers with
Another crash.
nowhere to escape.
This is the kind
Smoke
of moment that
covering
can
the
shape
track.
an entire season.
It all unfolded in seconds.
If NASCAR decides
and it wasn't
to
just smaller
penalize him,
names getting
that
caught
could
up.
seriously impact
Major
his
drivers
trajectory.
were taken out. Tyler
Even
Reddick,
without
Denny
penalties,
Hamlin,
a DNF,
Kyle
this
Busch,
Joey
Hurts,
Logano, Kyle
especially
Larson.
when
The
consistency
list
matters
keeps
so
going.
much heading toward the playoffs.
In fact, more than half the
and
field
as
was
fans,
wiped out
we all
in
know
that single moment.
At Talladega, something
number
like
of
this
cars
is
involved
always
is
just
almost
one moment away from
unbelievable.
happening again. Now here's where things
That's
take
the
a
balance
serious
of the
turn.
sport.
It's exciting,
NASCAR hasn't just brushed
unpredictable,
this
and at
off as
times
one of those
brutally
Talladega
unforgiving.
incidents.
That's
They've
what makes
officially
NASCAR
launched a
what it is.
detailed review of what happened.
Now, honestly, looking
Everything
at it
is
from
being
a fan's
analyzed.
perspective,
Data,
I don't
radio
think Wallace
conversations,
deserves a
in-car
suspension.
footage, trying
This
to
felt
fully
like
understand
classic
how that
superspeedway
push sequence
racing.
unfolded.
At tracks
They're
like
looking at things
Talladega,
like
everyone is
throttle
riding
control,
the edge
positioning,
every
and
lap.
even intent.
One slight angle,
And depending
one
on what they
mistimed
find,
push,
the outcome
and
could vary
everything
widely.
unravels.
It could end with
That's
no action
exactly
at all,
what this looked like.
or it could lead to penalties.
At the same time,
points
it makes sense
deductions,
why NASCAR
fines,
is
or
reviewing
even
it.
a suspension.
When 26
That's
cars
a big
are wrecked,
deal.
you have to analyze
Because
everything.
let's be honest,
Data,
throttle
superspeedway
input, radio
racing is
communication,
always intense
because safety
cars are
always
packed
comes
together,
first.
inches apart,
But
flying
from what
close
we
to
saw,
200
it
miles
didn't look
per hour.
intentional or unusually
One tiny
reckless compared to
miscalculation
typical
can
racing
trigger a
at this track.
disaster. Most
If
of the
anything,
time,
it
we just
highlights
call it
just
a
how
racing
unpredictable
incident,
Talladega
and that's
still
pretty
is,
much how
even
Wallace
with
sees
modern
it too.
safety improvements.
After leaving
And
the
the tough
infield
part,
care center,
the
he
timing.
explained it in a way most drivers
Wallace
would
was
understand.
building real momentum
At
this
Talladega,
season.
you're
He was
constantly
consistent,
on the limit,
competitive,
one push at
and
the wrong
starting to
angle
look
and
like a
everything
regular
falls
contender
apart.
up front.
He didn't blame
Compared to
anyone
someone
or
like
call
Reddick
anyone
winning
out,
races,
but you
it
could
felt
feel
like
the
Wallace was
frustration
getting
in
closer
his
to his
words.
own breakthrough.
He knows how quickly
Then
things
this
can
happens,
spiral, and no
suddenly
driver
it
ever
resets
wants to be at the
everything.
center of something like that.
That's what hurts the most.
Then
as
comes
a
the
fan.
second layer
Not
of this
just
story,
the crash, but
and this
what
is
it
where
takes
it
away
really
from a
hits
driver who was
emotionally.
genuinely putting together
When
a
Wallace
strong
spoke
run.
afterward, you could hear the
From
disappointment
a historical
clearly.
standpoint, this is why
This marked
Talladega
his
never
second
loses its
DNF
edge.
of the season,
Even when it's
and
not
that kind
the
of
biggest
result
crash ever,
quietly
it still
chips away
feels
at momentum.
unforgettable.
He talked about
26
how they
cars
came
might
out of
not be a
stage
record,
one with
but it's
nothing to show.
massive. How
And it
tough
proves
that
that
is,
the big one
and
is
how much
always
it
just
impacts
one
the
mistake
entire
away.
team.
Including
So yeah,
23
in my view, this
XI
was a
racing
racing
and their
incident.
sponsor Xfinity.
A harsh one, no doubt, but
But
what
still
really
part of
stood
the
out.
nature of superspeedway
He didn't make
racing.
excuses.
No
Instead,
suspension,
he took
just
responsibility.
learn from it and move forward.
He admitted they need to improve.
But what do you think?
Figure out how
Should
to handle
NASCAR
pushes
step
better,
in, or was this
manage
just one of those
high-pressure
unavoidable
more
moments?
effectively?
Where do you even
Especially
begin
within
after
their
a NASCAR
Toyota
weekend
group.
like that?
That's a
You
driver
know those
owning
races
the
where
situation
halfway through
even
something
when it
just
just
feels
chaotic
off,
and unpredictable.
like the tension
and
is
that
quietly
matters even
building
more
the
when you
energy
consider
shifts,
the
and
bigger
you can
picture.
almost sense that something
Because
huge
heading
is
into this
about to
race,
happen.
Wallace was actually
And
putting
then
together a
suddenly,
strong start to
everything
the season.
flips in seconds. He had momentum on his side.
What we witnessed.
Top 10 finishes.
Moments
like
like
these are why fans are so deeply connected to this sport. Then came consistent
but also
runs
why
like P11 at Coda, another P11 at Bristol, and a strong
And the
P5
truth is,
at
this
Kansas.
isn't just about one headline.
It felt like something
There are
was
three
finally
major
coming together,
storylines
coming out of this
but
race.
at the same time,
and each
he's
one
watching
carries
his
its
teammate
own
Tyler
weight.
Reddick dominate the
One
season
could have
with
serious
multiple wins
consequences
already.
going
Wallace
forward.
even opened up about
Another
that
shows
in
the
an
raw
interview, saying
emotional
there's
reality
no
drivers
jealousy,
deal with behind
just
the
that
scenes.
honest feeling.
And
of,
the third,
when is it going
it
to
puts
be our
everything
turn?
into a bigger perspective
And that
might
hits differently
genuinely
because
surprise
it's real.
you. There's
It's
a
not
lot to break
frustration
down
at
here.
others,
But
it's
first,
the hunger
quick
to break
pause.
through.
If you're someone
That's
who
why a wreck
genuinely
like this
enjoys
stings
real
even
NASCAR
more.
talk like this,
Just
go
when
ahead
things
and start
start clicking,
clicking, something
subscribe.
like this pulls you right
This
back.
channel is just getting started.
Now step back
aiming
and look
for
at
that
the
bigger
first
picture.
100 subscribers.
After the
built by
crash,
fans who
everyone had the
actually
same
live and breathe the
question.
sport. Was this the biggest
Now
wreck
let's get into
Talladega
it.
has ever seen?
Everything starts with
The answer,
Bubba Wallace,
almost, but not
and
quite.
unfortunately not in
With
the way
26
he would have
cars
wanted.
involved, it's easily one
During
of the
the
largest
race at
pileups in
Talladega
NASCAR Cup
Superspeedway,
Series
we got
history.
one
At
of those
Talladega
instantly
Superspeedway,
recognizable moments every
but it
fan
still falls
knows,
short of the record-setting
one.
28 car
And this wasn't
crash
just
from
any
the
wreck.
October
It
2024
turned into a
playoff
massive
race.
26-car pileup
Before
that
that, the
completely
2003
reshaped the
Aaron's
race.
500 held the
Wallace was
benchmark
running
with
near the
27
front when
cars
things
for
suddenly
years.
went wrong.
So
There
while
was
this one
contact
doesn't
during
top
the
the
push,
list, it
something
absolutely
that
belongs
pretty
in that
common at
conversation.
superspeedways.
And the way it unfolded.
But this time
pure
it escalated
Talladega
fast.
chaos.
His car got
Lap
turned,
116,
slammed into the outside
a push
wall,
goes
and
wrong,
from that
Bubba
point
Wallace
it
gets
was pure
turned,
chaos.
and
suddenly the track
cars
disappears
crashing
under
into
smoke.
each other,
Drivers
nowhere to
have
escape,
zero visibility,
smoke covering the
and at
track.
nearly 200
It
miles
all
per hour,
unfolded in
there's simply
seconds.
no time to react.
And it
wasn't just smaller names
You
getting
hear
caught
radio
up.
chatter like
Major
it's a
drivers
parking
were
lot
taken
back
out.
here.
Tyler
And that
Reddick,
pretty
Denny
much sums it up.
Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Joey
This is
Logano,
exactly why
Kyle
Talladega
Larson.
has the reputation
list
it
keeps
does.
going. Tight packs,
In fact,
high
more than
speeds,
half
and
the
almost
field
no
was
margin
wiped out
for
in
error.
that single moment.
One small
The
misjudgment,
number of cars
a
involved
bad
is
push,
almost
a blocked
unbelievable.
lane, and half the field
Now
is
here's
gone
where
in
things take a
seconds.
serious turn.
That's superspeedway racing.
NASCAR hasn't just brushed
when you
this
put
off as
everything
one of
together,
those Talladega
the scale of the
incidents.
wreck,
NASCAR's
officially
ongoing
launched a
review,
detailed review
the
of what
emotional hit
happened
for Wallace and the
everything is
historical
being
angle.
analyzed. This
Data,
wasn't just
radio
another
conversations,
crash.
in-car
This
footage,
is the kind of moment
trying
that
to
can
fully
shape an
understand
entire
how that
season.
push sequence unfolded.
If NASCAR decides
They're
to
looking at
penalize
things like
him,
throttle
that could
control,
seriously
positioning,
impact
and
his
even
trajectory.
intent.
And depending
Even
on
without
what they
penalties,
find,
the
the
outcome
DNF
could
this
vary
early
widely.
hurts. It could end
Especially
with
when
no
no action at
consistency
all,
matters so
or
much
heading
heading
toward
toward
the
the
playoffs,
playoffs, points deductions,
and as
fines,
fans, we all know,
or even a suspension.
At Talladega,
Something
a
like
big
this
deal.
is always just one
Because
moment
let's
away
be
from
honest,
happening again.
superspeedway racing
That's
is
the
always
balance of this
intense.
sport.
Cars
It's
are
exciting,
packed together,
unpredictable,
inches
and at
apart,
times
flying close to
brutally
200
unforgiving.
miles per hour.
That's what makes
One
NASCAR
tiny
what it is.
miscalculation can trigger
Now,
a
honestly,
disaster.
looking at it from a
Most
fan's
of the time,
perspective,
we just call it a
I don't
racing
think
incident,
Wallace deserves a suspension.
and that's pretty much how
This
Wallace
felt like
sees it
classic
too.
superspeedway racing.
After leaving the infield
at
care
tracks
center,
like
he explained
Talladega,
it in a way
everyone is
most
riding
drivers
the edge
would
every
understand.
lap.
At
One slight
Talladega,
angle,
you're
one
constantly on
mistimed
the limit,
push, one
and
push at the
everything
wrong angle,
unravels.
and everything falls apart.
That's exactly what this looked
He didn't
like.
blame anyone or call
At the
anyone
same
out,
time, it makes
but
sense
you could
why
feel the
NASCAR is
frustration in
reviewing
his
it.
words.
When 26
He knows how
cars are
quickly
wrecked, you
things
have
can
to
spiral,
analyze
and
everything.
no driver ever wants
Data,
to be at the
throttle
center of
input,
something
radio
like that.
communication.
Then
Because
comes
the
the
second
second
layer
layer
of
of
the
this
story.
first. And this is where
But
it
from what
really
we
hits
saw, it
emotionally.
didn't look intentional or
When Wallace
unusually
spoke
reckless
afterward, you
compared
could
to
hear the
typical racing
disappointment
at these
clearly.
tracks.
This
If
marked
anything,
his
it
second
highlights
DNF
just
of
how
the season,
unpredictable
and that
Talladega
kind of
still
result
is,
quietly
even
chips
with
away at
modern
momentum.
safety improvements.
He talked about
the
how
tough
they
part?
came out of stage
The
one
timing.
with nothing to show.
Wallace
How
was
tough
building
that is,
real momentum
and
this
how much
season.
it impacts
He was
the entire
consistent,
team,
competitive,
including
and
23
starting to look like a regular
Racing and their
contender up
sponsor
front.
Xfinity. Compared to someone
But
like
what
Reddick
really
winning
stood out?
races, it felt
He
like
didn't make
Wallace was getting
excuses.
closer to his
Instead,
own
he
breakthrough.
took
responsibility. Then this happens.
He admitted they
and
need to
suddenly
improve,
it resets everything. Figure out how to handle pushes better.
That's what hurts the
Manage
most as a
those
fan.
high-pressure moments
Not just
more
the
effectively,
crash,
but what it takes
especially
away from a
within
driver
their
who is
Toyota group.
genuinely putting together a
That's
strong
a
driver owning the situation.
From a historical
even when it's
standpoint,
chaotic,
this is why
and
Talladega
unpredictable.
never loses its
and
edge.
that matters even
Even
more
when it's
you
not the
consider
biggest
the
crash
bigger
ever,
picture.
it still feels
Because heading into
unforgettable.
this race, Wallace was
26
actually
cars
putting
might
together
not
a
be a
strong
record,
start to
but
the
it's
season.
massive. And it proves that momentum on his side, always just top 10 finishes in 4 of the first 5 races. So yeah, in my view, this was a racing incident. Consistent runs like P11 at Coda, another P11 at Bristol, and a strong P5 at Kansas. No suspension, just it felt like something was finally coming together. But what do you think? But at the same time, he's watching his teammate Tyler Reddick just dominate one of those unavoidable wins already.